Hello and welcome to Freedom from Trauma, an online education series where we're interviewing authors, experts, and teachers to bring powerful conversations and profound practices that help heal trauma and consciously create the body, mind, spirit that you truly desire. Today, our guest is Kristen Boice. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's really, likewise, it really is an honor for me and our audience as well, because you do some really incredible work. I've been following you and I've read a lot of your writing and work, and I'm this idea of close the chapter. Okay, this is a really profound piece of on the journey of anyone that has either experienced trauma or is currently in the experience of trauma. So it's definitely a big one. And I'm really glad that we have you to really like walk us through, talk to us about that. But to start us off, can you share a little about your inspiration around this body of work that you created around closing the chapter?
Absolutely. It starts, as all things do, in childhood. And typically when we float back there, we realize the richness of our experiences, even if they're painful, filled with grief and loss, that they're here to guide us. And that's exactly why I'm here. My parents got divorced when I was in third grade, and that opened a window, so to speak, that opened a window for me to walk through, starting to do my own work in third grade. So I started to keep a journal, write out what I felt, write about the pain of it. And as I did that, I found that it was releasing something inside of me. It was freeing me as I went along the journey. Then I headed into corporate America and was the youngest assistant vice president in a Fortune 500 company, and then decided that that was a hustle that was not fulfilling. And that's when I embarked on the journey to become a marriage and family therapist, because at the heart of what I do is work with systems, family systems, systems are work systems, religious systems. Everything's a system. Culture is a system. Yeah. And when we can work within that system, and it starts in our family of origin, we can find healing. It is transformation. We can break conditions, programming, generational patterns that we've established over lifetimes. And it was really that was the piece that lit me up when I did my training, was that systemic work, looking at how do systems form? Why do we believe what we believe? Why do I have the triggers that I have? Why do I show up the way I show up? A lot of it starts in utero. A lot of it starts even lifetimes before that. And when I discovered that, and I could help people recognize, become aware, and break these generational patterns, it was the fire within me to see the power and self-awareness in doing work. And so that led me on a journey, really my family system. And I'm grateful for it, even though there was hard in it. It has helped me do the work I do today. I see exactly why I was on that path. And it's enriched my life to say, I see you, I understand the pain, we can heal it. We can close the chapter as long as we have a willingness within inside of ourselves to face the pain and move through it and get to the other side. So that's really what inspired me to show up here doing this work.
It was that yearning to be whole and experience life to the fullest. So, it's incredible how your journey from your own family of origin to today being in service and turning your own setbacks into using it like a flashlight, pointing and guiding people on their path. However, there's one thing that really caught my attention, and I want you to help me with this. Take me back to, you're in third grade, you figure out that something's not right, and you find this way of expressing yourself and writing and journaling. So what was that like? What did that look like? I want to just hear it from you.
Yeah, the little third grade Kristen was kind of in silence, dealing with what was going on in the family system with my own pain, my own sense of loss, my own grief, not understanding it. I was trying to make sense of it. And as children, we feel powerless in a lot of ways. We feel powerless to have a voice, to say how we really feel, because we're trying to stay safe. We want to be connected. We want to belong in the family. And it was my way that I can even picture the diary I carried around, and I still have it. It's one of those cherished possessions when I look back to go, wow, the depth of what goes on as children is profound. And it was my way of getting out and trying to process and make sense of my own grief, my own loss, my own sadness. I put on records, these old Barbara Streisand records.
Oh my God, I used to do the same thing.
The way we were. Do you remember that? The way
yes.
we were. I put the records on and I would cry. It gave me
the saddest song.
Yes.
I know. Oh my God.
So I would get the record out and I would let myself just get it out in my own room, in the privacy of my own room, and do my journal, cry and cry and cry. And it was a way, and I realize now the significance of what that did for me.
Yeah.
It helped in real time work through grief, work through loss, and it helped my nervous system. Because what happens is then I go flashback to my 6th grade self that started to stuff things down a little bit more, wasn't journaling as often, and I would get headaches. I get sick at school. It was manifesting physically. And now we have a term for that called somaticism. It's where the body is taking over, and I was not processing things. So my body was taking that on. And so it's real. I can see the progression of when I wouldn't do the journaling and the impact it had on me physically and emotionally. And when I would put my records on, when I would put my music on, get my diary out, what a gift that was to my little girl to help me process when my parents weren't available. They were going through their own grief and loss. They were going through their own stuff, their own inner child issues. They weren't available to meet me where I was in my own grief. And no, I'm not blaming them. It's just the reality of what was happening. And so that little girl inside still exists. And that's what I work with a lot of people. I work with being the idealized parent that you didn't get. I work with you being the mother, you being your own father, you being that nurturing, authentic, emotionally available parent. And that's what I give when my 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old comes online, or my teenager self. I'm able to meet her and go, oh, honey, it's okay. It's okay to let it out. Yeah, it's okay, sweetie. And I'm able to nurture myself through it. I know it sounds cheesy. When we get to that point, then we're not dependent on someone else's response to our pain.
Right.
I can actually meet my pain. I can tend to it. I can nurture it without feeling rejected, abandoned, not good enough if someone doesn't respond in a certain way. And oftentimes people don't have the skills. They didn't get it in their childhoods, but I'm waiting for them to be the nurturing person and acknowledge, me when I'm in that place. And what I teach people is you can do that for you. So that's why that little girl doing the journal at 8, I can love her well, because I see her and what she needed. I know what she needed. So now I can give it to her. Yeah. It's such a pivotal part to work with our inner child parts at different ages where things happen to us. Then we can then see what that inner child needed at that time. It's super powerful work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you were telling your story and your journey, I could relate to so many points and milestones and even ages that you mentioned. And it's like exactly, around the same time is when I experienced a childhood abuse, and around the same time where my body started going crazy was when I gave up sports and I got depressed. And as a going in from middle school into high school, went into depression, and my body just was crying for regulation and the nervous system to calm, but I didn't figure it out for another few years. And so, yeah, it's just incredible. And, the people watching, our audience and everyone that's watching, this is just reminding me that, number one, at one point we were children. Today I know I am an adult with children, right? As a child, I had a parent. Today, I am a parent. And so there is all this family system dynamic that you talk about, and completing the past and close the chapter. But heal, not when you say close the chapter, just to be clear, you're not saying forgive and forget and, let bygones be bygones. This is actually entering into the space of loving and nurturing and saying, like you said, sweetie, it's okay, I'm here. I just want to say that this is a pivotal work, and it's kind of the hairpin bend to end this cycle, the intergenerational pain, trauma, and cycle. Am I?
Absolutely. What you're closing the chapter on is the patterns that no longer serve you. The programming, the conditioning that no longer serve you. You're closing the chapter on those things, and you're opening the door to what does serve you. You're opening the door to this whole concept of self-care, which is not selfish. And we're breaking these generational messages that we've gotten and beliefs about ourselves. Like, I'm not good enough, thin enough, I'm not a good enough wife, mother, father, etc. Daughter, I mean, we could go on and on about the not good enough. And we're breaking that pattern on all those beliefs that we internalized, that were really legacies of generational trauma. And so that's what we're closing the chapter on. And that is what will set us free to open the door to possibilities. And until we start working through those, and there's many different ways to do that, we feel trapped, we feel stuck, we feel paralyzed, we feel stuck in the shame and the anxiety and the depression and guilt. And that's what I want to free people of. And we can connect emotionally with those core emotions and live more authentically versus pleasing, performing, perfecting, placating, pretending, all the things that we've learned to do.
Yeah.
We then close the chapter and we recognize when those patterns come up, and we can go, oh, okay, that's old messages. That's rooted in, there's my eight-year-old self. All she needs is to know she's okay and she's loved, and it's okay for her to have her feelings. There's no shame.
It's so painful to find yourself in that place again and again, in that cycle of trauma where you just don't know how to break out, and you're yourself repeating that pattern, the very pattern you want to get out of. And I know you have some incredible modalities and pathways to break patterns. Of course, you have your journal, and then you have other treatment programs that you help individuals with and groups with. So speak into some of those paths and modalities, and I would love the audience to actually jump in the chat and in the comments and send you their questions as well and feedback on that.
I would love that. There's several that I've worked with that I've discovered over my journey of 18 years as a therapist. Yeah. And the first one that made the most significant impact initially was EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It's been around a long time. Francine Shapiro is the one that originally discovered it. And what we're doing is, think about a computer and think about all the files running on your computer. And a lot of times we have files running our computer from our past experiences that we don't, and they're running the show. They're taking up energy. They're taking up hard drive space. They're taking up just our thinking and our thoughts and space. They're
like an operating system.
Like an operating system. Yeah. And what I help people do is, what it does is it reprocesses and it releases thoughts, feelings, body sensations that got trapped in the nervous system, and releases that so it can set your nervous system free. And so then that is not running on your hard drive anymore. So that's in the file folder. If you need it, you can click on it. Chances are you're not going to need it. So you're not going to need to click on it. It doesn't erase anything. What it does is it puts it where it needs to go, which is in the past. It's not having the intensity over you in the present time. So when a trigger comes up, it doesn't have the intensity that it normally would have. That's what I love about EMDR. It reprocesses what was maladaptive to now you have more of an adaptive response. So your reactions aren't so, what I call, overwhelming. And
Okay,
your nervous
so
system isn't so overwhelmed.
so you're saying I've had incredible trauma from abuse as a child, and that an EMDR session can help me take those, not forget that it happened, but take the intensity, the experience of the intensity, the impact on my nervous system, all of that, and put it away to the side. So now all of a sudden, even just hearing you say that, I was like, so does that mean I have all this new room available in my mental, emotional bodies, physical body almost? Is that
That's
what you're
what it
saying?
feels like. So, and it may not just be one session, it might be several sessions, because
Sure.
what happens is we have layers. And so we think, well, I cleared that layer. People are like, well, I thought I was done. I'm like, oh, we ran into another layer. It's okay. We just need to clear it out. We need to clear the debris so you can free yourself up of that space and energy to make room for new. You can let things land deeper that are more loving too. When we're bound with trauma, we have a hard time receiving love. We have a hard time receiving, it feels scary. It's vulnerable. Even though we want to be loved, we want to be seen, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be heard. And when we are, it can feel very vulnerable. So we can get a lot more comfortable with vulnerability. And the end result, people are like, I just feel lighter. I'm like, because we've taken the weight. Think of it as a backpack. We've unzipped it and we took this rock that wasn't even yours. It was your dad's, it was your mom's, it was your
Given
grandparents.
to you. Yeah.
It was so and so, your cousin, your neighbor, aunt, doesn't matter. We've cleared those out and you're like, oh my gosh, my body is even lighter. I'm like, yeah, because you've been carrying that backpack around with other people's stuff your
Yeah.
whole life. So it takes, that's a metaphor, it takes these rocks out of the backpack and you start feeling lighter. That's the end. You start not having the same intensity around a trigger that you might have otherwise.
I can remember instances with certain people when I've tried to compliment them or tell them that how much I care for them or love them and like be vulnerable and intimate. And I've seen people deflect or make a self-deprecating joke or comment and avoid. And is that something that is related to the inability to accept love and compliments? Could that be related to trauma? Because I know sometimes I've done it, but I now remember others doing it when I try to be intimate with them.
That's exactly what it is. It's here's what I call it. We have what we call defense mechanisms to protect us as children. We don't even know their defense mechanisms. We're just trying to survive what's going on. And one of the survival mechanisms we have is we build kind of these walls. I'll get close, but I won't get too close. I won't let you in. I'll be the one to decide. It's kind of this, it's a protective mechanism. And so what happens is then when someone does offer us love, that can actually feel threatening sometimes if we've had a lot of trauma. We can feel manipulated. We can feel unsafe. It can feel like there's an ulterior motive. And that is rooted in trauma because we know with a lot of trauma, manipulation plays a significant role in how we can control people. Children especially. And so it can also land like it feels like it's manipulative because oftentimes that was used to control the outcome. That was used to that was an abuse, a way to abuse somebody. And so that can feel threatening. And so our defenses can kick up and us want to go, oh, I don't trust. I don't know what you're trying to do here. So it can be hard to let that land sometimes because of those defense mechanisms that want to keep you safe. And we work a lot in therapy with defense mechanisms because trauma is adaptive when we're kids. What we did to survive in childhood, I want to go, oh my gosh, you were so brilliant. You were so creative. You did it. That was really, really smart of you. And we have a lot of shame, like I shouldn't have done that. I should have known, I should have spoke up. But I'm like, no, that was a survival strategy. You kept yourself safe. And that's what we work a lot in therapy on are those defense mechanisms. And some of it's putting a smile on. Like I could be talking to somebody about the most painful thing in there. It's because that's how they hit it. They hit it with a smile. They hit it with a joke. They hid it with hiding, shutting down, not saying anything, being quiet, because that was what the messages they got. They hid it by, avoiding. So I'm just going to just avoid any kind of connection with anybody. So there was a lot of ways that we learned to busy ourselves. There's tons of defense mechanisms. And when someone says something to us, it goes through the filter of survival. Are they trying to hurt me? Are they trying to manipulate me? That's what trauma does to children. And then we take that into adulthood. And then it manifests typically in relationships, intimate relationships. And then we'll see this play out, and it will disarm us to a degree, because we're repeating a defense mechanism that worked as a child. And now it's not working anymore. And it can be very disarming for trauma, people that have gone through, and most people have gone through trauma, I want to say that. And most people have gone through some form of trauma. And how I define trauma is unprocessed emotion, intense emotion. It doesn't matter the event. It's not what happens to us. It's that we don't have an empathic witness to process what was going on. When we have an empathic witness to walk us through, to acknowledge the feelings, to acknowledge the pain, that can actually result in not being so traumatized. Trauma is because we didn't have anybody. We were alone in it. We weren't able to process it. So everybody has some degree of what I call trauma. And when we can go, okay, my little girl, my little 8-year-old didn't have anybody to process that with. Oh, that makes sense that she would be triggered by, maybe a friendship that breaks up or something along those lines. When we can connect the dots and we can go, oh, that's why that felt so scary to me. That's why that was so hurtful and painful. Yeah, because that's the 8-year-old it's stuck in the 8-year-old part that didn't get processed. And when we can process that, we can free that. It no longer is trauma, because we're now working through it. We're now acknowledging it. We're now processing through it. And that's what frees us. And it feels scary at the beginning for a lot of people, because they're like, I don't want to open Pandora's box. I mean, I don't want to go back and rehash everything. I'm like, it's already open. You just don't know it's open. You're stuck because you're not processing anything. And your body is screaming at you to process it. And it's going to keep screaming, or your relationship, something's going to happen on the external that's going to scream at you it's time. It's time. We can do this. So I'm a space holder a lot of time. I'm a space holder of a safe space holder to say, we can do this. I got you. Let's keep going. We're just clearing the debris. We're just clearing the layers. And it's going to feel disarming at the beginning, because you're not used to feeling. You're not used to feeling the body sensations. You've disconnected from that. You're not used to feeling your emotions. So and I teach people how to manage that, how to tolerate it. So we call that a window of tolerance. So if we can get somebody to tolerate those feelings, tolerate those body sensations, they're more apt to be able to go, okay, I can handle this, versus I can't handle this, I can't do this, this feels too overwhelming and scary. So we work a lot on the breath, and I know you're big into the breath. It's one of the most important pieces to be able to work through trauma. And it sounds simple, and yet it is the most profound, number one place I start when working with trauma is the breath.
Wonderful. Wow, that's incredible. How do you work with EMDR and children? Does it work with children?
Children clear so much faster than adults, because adults have developed all these defensive ways to handle the pain, handle the emotions. Children haven't yet. So depending on what age you get them, they don't have all the layers, all the maladaptive ways they've learned to shut it down. So they clear very quickly, depending on the trauma, depending on the age of the child. So the results are faster typically with children than adults. And it depends on if it's a one-off event, like a car accident, or they're having, they've been sexually traumatized and that has been an ongoing, like they've been molested for a long period of time. That may take a little longer. And then we have to work on a safety plan, typically in some situations, because we can't heal if we're still being traumatized. So sometimes we have to work on a safety plan to get that in place before we even start the EMDR. And sometimes we can do it obviously simultaneously. And the other modality that I like to use is brain spotting. And brain spotting was started by David Grand. And it uses, where EMDR uses bilateral, either tappers, eye movement. And bilateral, I mean, we're moving the eyes. So it could be, we're watching fingers, we're watching a light bar, and we're going from the right to the left hemispheres of the brain. The tappers are tapping in your hand, going right, left, right, left. There's also, we can use what I call a butterfly hug, where we're slowly tapping. So that's EMDR. We're using bilateral, what we call bilateral stimulation. And versus brain spotting was started by Dr. David Grand. And he really noticed when he was working with clients that the singular eye, fixed eye position also can access the subcortical part of the brain. So if we have my little brain here, so the subcortex is where, and I won't get too technical here, but this is the amygdala. This is actually our brain stem, where our body connects into the brain. So that's back here. And EMDR and brain spotting really gets into that subcortical brain, where the neocortex does a lot of thinking. Have you ever thought to yourself, like, I know this, but emotionally it's disconnected?
Yeah,
I
I know this intellectually, but
I know
yeah.
this, but it's not connecting. That's EMDR and brain spotting. We connect the two, and we can access the body sensations, the emotions, and that's because the brainstem is connected to this part of the brain. It's deeper. It's the deeper inside part of the brain. And that's what I love about EMDR and brain spotting, is we can access this, because talk therapy, we can get into our heads. I call it looping, rumination. And we can just, it's like a wheel. We're on the wheel, we're on, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I just talked myself in a circle.
Decades later, I'm still saying the same old story, you know?
Same story.
Yeah.
And what I like
it's a very common experience, actually, of talk therapy, and then people give up on it and do nothing. You know, unfortunately, when there are so many ways like this that are available. So I'm so glad you're explaining it, and I love the, you
my little brain,
yeah,
my little
that's
brain model. This is what I love about brain spotting, because in EMDR, now we're getting out of the thinking so much and into the deeper part where we're stuck, where the trauma lives, into the emotions in the body, and we're moving those through. So I can't just talk myself out of, well, it's not that bad. And, you know, I don't have it as bad as she did. I mean, they have it so much worse. And really, it was my fault. And I'm taking myself out of my process, because that's how I've coped with it since I was little. We had no other option but to try to talk ourselves through it, or talk ourselves out of it, or get into that trying to make sense of it. So this really is profound. So the fixed eye movement is very much different. So I'm not using the back and forth eye movement. I'm using a fixed eye position to reprocess. And I was skeptical. I'm like, really? I don't know. I mean, does this really work? I have to go through it before I'll do anything with clients. I mean, I have to walk the walk. This is the bottom line. I have to do my own work. I have to walk the walk. So I did it, and I'm with both, and both were different. And man, did I get a lot out of it. I can't explain it until you go through it. It's a clearing. That's what I want to say. It's a clearing. It's a clearing of debris that you've been carrying around this whole, and you can see clearer. When you're not all filled up with the debris, I have clarity. I'm like, oh, light bulb, that makes sense. Or, oh, my body feels so much better. I'm not so heavy. So there are other ways to get to what lies underneath and free it that are really powerful. So those are the two modalities I use often. And then I'm also trained in Dr. Brene Brown's shame, resiliency, and vulnerability work. And
what do you not do? I mean, I can schedule the next 6 years with you right now.
and I love her work, because without vulnerability, we have no connection and we don't have growth. And what do people have struggled doing in relationships because they didn't do it as children because it wasn't safe? Vulnerability. So I teach, I equip, we process that so we can step more into vulnerability with courage. That we're closing the chapter on all the maladaptive ways we've learned. Thank it for its service, honor it, thank you. You helped me survive it. And now I'm gonna open the door to even healthier ways to be able to have deeper connections with myself. So then I have deeper connections with others. And I'm a healthier parent. I'm a healthier spouse. I'm a healthier friend. I'm healthier. It makes all the difference. So then I can stop. I'm so aware now. It's like, oh, there's a trigger within me. My stuff, nobody else's stuff. Not my kids' responsibility to make me feel better. Not my husband's, not my friends. It's mine. It's mine to tend to. It's mine to nurture. It's mine to own. Ownership is empowerment. Ownership is empowerment. And that is really the key to working through trauma. It's not owning what happened to you. It's owning your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations. That means you get to tend to it now. You don't have to rely on anybody else to do that for you. That's the icing on the cake, those relationships. It's so powerful.
That's so empowering, because I can think of relationships like where I have childhood trauma. Now my husband has childhood trauma. He didn't know. I didn't know. We're married. We have a family, and now I'm spinning, healing myself, and he doesn't know. And it's like, so not only is one, like when you're in a relationship, it can be like this 2 + 2 is 2,200, right? And you just don't know. And it's very hard until you do the work, to be able to say, oh, this is not mine, this is yours. And then for him to be able to say, oh, this is mine, this is not yours, this is just something I'm processing. And it's taken years to get there, but when it gets there, it's like everything changes. Like you can actually have healing relationship and say, we are together, but we are not this one blob of confusion. We have defined individual knowing of who we are. And it's so powerful to go through that experience, especially if you're married. I've been married 19 years and we have 3 children, and it's not been easy by any means. I mean, there've been wonderful parts and there've been horrible parts. And we realized that it all ties back to our childhood trauma. And without clearing, cleansing, and completing, we can't have a relationship in the family and demonstrate that to our children, and then have a family system that isn't like the one we were raised in. So
Exactly.
This is so important. So important.
I love how you said, because that's the whole backpack, like, oh, this is mine, this isn't mine. And you're clear, rather than taking on all the, it must be me, I'm terrible, I'm defective, there's something wrong with me, or it's all
I did something, that you're doing it because I did that. And just that whole, because that's the same story I told myself for years and years as a child, that all these bad things happened to me because I showed up in that way, or I said something, or I was, just taking on the ownership of everyone else's maladaptive, like you said, behaviors that were caused by their trauma. Like my father was abused as a child, but that didn't give him the right to abuse me, but it did happen, and on and on, and until we break the pattern, and the work that I did with my father to reconcile and do healing, and 20 years of transformational work, but it all paid off so I could be present for my children as a
what
mother.
a gift you have done by doing this work. I just want to acknowledge that, because it's a lot of work and it's worth it. You have changed the paradigm by you saying, I'm willing to go there, I'm willing to go to the hard, I'm willing to kind of feel the pain and lean into it and walk through it. Therefore, there's now, look, you're more present as a mom. It changed the legacy, and it will change their children.
Absolutely. 100%. And every time I do the work that I do, whether it's meditation or, healing and closing and completing the old and starting anew, in kind of in parallel to what you do, and I do it with meditation and other practices, but it's such a complement to the work, because I think, like you mentioned, the brain, I didn't know on a nervous system how the PTSD had manifested in my body. Like if there was a small sound somewhere, I literally jumped out of my skin. Or if my kid came to wake me up in the middle of the night, I literally jumped out of bed, because I used to get abused in my sleep. And so I didn't know those things. Like you talked about layers, and that word stuck with me, layers. Because when I got married, I thought I was done. I had done my work with my dad, and I'm good. And I get married, and then we have kids, and little by little, they're growing up, they're girls, like that's a trigger. Another like, where's all this showing up? So when you said layers, it's so true, because over the 20 some years of since I did the work with my dad, I've become a mom. My children, my oldest is like 16, so there's been years and years of me like noticing, what's this happening to me now? What's this sensation? And I not that I don't think, I know I would not have been able to notice if I hadn't done the work before it. So all these layers had to be released and free and free and free and free, so I could then see this new one, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's why it's so important to know, stick with it, be unstoppable, keep going, just keep getting stronger.
I love the two words that came up for me when you were saying that, because I'm like, yes, is awareness. You have more awareness and curiosity. Why? Oh, let me follow that curiosity. I got triggered there. What was going on? Or, oh, here's another layer. I can feel it in my body. Oh, I feel really sad. What's that? Curiosity, without judging it, without shaming yourself, or going, why I shouldn't feel that way, or I should be over this by now, or why does this keep coming up? I should have moved on. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's all right. Just hold some non-judgmental space of curiosity and go, what is that? Oh, shame wants to take us down a dark rabbit hole. There's something wrong with me. I shouldn't feel like this. And it stunts us. It stunts us from that curious place. And so I love that that's what I heard from you. Like you were aware, gave you awareness, presence, and curiosity to keep going.
I remember becoming a mother was a huge game changer for me, because it was like, I have to be, there's honesty here. There's total, like, I can't look away from these beings and pretend and fake it, till I make it, kind of a thing. My work sort of accelerated because of becoming a parent. And even, I've heard this said, even if whenever you talk about parenting, it's not only for those who have children, because everybody had a parent. So when you can understand this idea of conscious parenting, or raising yourself as a conscious parent within, for yourself, as a parent to yourself, because sadly my parents didn't have that when they were parenting. And of course, since then we've had a journey, and we're in each other's lives, and I talk to them all the time. We've found a place of healing and reconciliation, and actually joy together, and family together. That wasn't always the case, because they also didn't have the tools, they didn't have the information, it was a different time, all of that. So I feel very fortunate that I've met teachers and experts and read books, and been able to find that path. And work like yours is just incredible. So I really hope that the audience that's watching will definitely dig deeper to search your tools, not retreats, your journal on Close the Chapter, and you have classes and courses. I do want to ask you, so everyone can understand how EMDR works from the standpoint of the fact that we're in a very different time where we can't really go to doctors' offices or therapist offices. How can I have that experience in this quarantine world that we're in now, which I believe we'll be in for a little while?
Yes, I think it's a very good question, because trauma that wasn't processed and it was hidden underneath is coming to the surface in these circumstances. So what I'm seeing is there's an awakening happen because we're at a point where we feel like we're at a breaking point. It's like, I can't take this anymore, and we're not going to be able to go back to what was. So we're grieving over that. And so it's presented some beautiful opportunities to do therapy like this. And who would have guessed? I was like, no, I'm such an in-person person. I like to
Me
hug. I'm
too.
very, I thought I'm not going to ever do teletherapy. No, it has been the most incredible experience. EMDR and brain spotting. I got trained in brain spotting during quarantine via the video. And I was so skeptical. I thought, I am not going to get much. I'm not going to do this on a screen. I mean, what am I going to really get out of it? Oh, was I ever wrong? It was so transformative. I felt so much lighter after doing the brain spotting. So you can do it remotely. There's applications for EMDR that we use that we can still do sound through the headphones and eye movement. It has been almost even more effective than in person. And I'm telling you this out of just sheer awe, because I did not believe that could be possible. And clients are now saying, I kind of like this better. This is working for me even better. And I'm like, well, it could be a multitude of things, but what I do know is it's just as effective. So brain spotting can be done via telehealth. There's a lot of them out there, and EMDR can be done over video therapy. So don't let that be,
all the
let that be
amazing, yeah, all the amazing things
obstacle.
that have come out of this really horrible, unfortunate period in our lives. But there's just so many gifts too that have come out of it, just like our own lives. You talked about systems, family system, community, our different systems we surrounded. We create an internal system as well that we take from all of this, and then we have our own. And then, one of those systems for me was, I'll never do my work online. You know, that's weird. Why would I do meditation? You're supposed to do it in person. You're supposed to demonstrate in person. And it's like, no, this has been really same response. It's just like, no, this is great. Can we just keep this going? you know,
Yes,
when
it's
it's
beautiful.
time to be in person, it'll be time. So that's great. So people can reach out to you directly. And I know you have a practice that you have several practitioners as well for that work. But tell us more.
Yes, so I own a private practice with 11 clinicians, and then there's EMDR clinicians. If you go to emdria.org, all over the world, and brain spotting therapists all over the world. So if you really want to do something in person, some people are offering that. So just get on and type in your local area, brain spotting therapist, EMDR therapist. I want people to do it wherever it is they are, because I believe in it that much. So, and it's not just the EMDR and the brain spotting, it's the relationship you have with the therapist. If you feel safe with a therapist, it will continue to build over time. If you feel seen, the relationship with the therapist is critical. So if you don't feel connected, what I say is that's okay. Try another one.
Mhm.
It's okay. Try the one until you feel like that's going to be safe enough for you to do the healing. Keep going. I have a lot of information about this on the Close the Chapter podcast. There's over 69 episodes. I talk about family systems. I talk about roles in families and how we take the role in the family. And this could be a whole nother episode, but we take the role in the family system and we take that in all of our environments, work environments. We take them in our marriage. We take them with our kids. So it's really an important part of the work and healing process is to recognize when you're starting to play in a role, like if you were the caregiver in a family, if you were the hero, if you were the lost child, if you were the scapegoat, there's a lot of roles. So in the Close the Chapter podcast, it's all free. You can go on there and get You can binge listen to it. You can pick and choose the episodes that speak to you to help you. My whole goal and the mission I'm here to do is help people find the healing and the freedom to be their authentic self and to have vulnerable and connected relationships that are safe, of course. We're not going to continue to be in a relationship where it's recreating the same pattern we've been in, and it might not be a safe relationship, and then we have to grieve those and say goodbye. So when we step into the work, freedom comes, and it is hard. So I tell people it's hard and worth it.
Yeah.
You learn to love that because you feel lighter in it. So my whole invitation for people is just to keep going. You've got this, you're worth it. And we're going to hold space for you to do that. Just in the energy we're bringing into this space to hold space. I hope you feel that now, that we are just holding the space, saying, if this is something you've been putting off, maybe take a deep breath, do a meditation, invite that courage to come in so you can step into the work. And I think meditation and breathing is what you do is essential to be able to cope with what does come up. It's essential. So it's a recipe.
It's this dance, because when you get quiet, when you breathe and you get guided into going internal, and then you're confronted with what shows up, then there's a process that needs to happen so you can release that. And I feel like there's this balance of going internal, releasing it, processing it, then going internal, releasing and processing, so you can really unpack and unravel all the things that you've accumulated over a lifetime. If you're an adult, having those experiences with trauma, and the people watching this show are looking for, how can I have relief? You said freedom. How can I have freedom, which is in the name of the show? How can I be, have the life that I've truly, really, I know I can have that life, but I don't have it right now. And I'm just running out of ideas, And so this has been really eye-opening. And I hope that audience watching, can really has learned more about it, and will continue to learn more about these different modalities. And brain spotting, EMDR, the podcast, and last but not the least, close the chapter, journal. You want to say something about the journal?
Yes, and the journal was created with the hope and intention of giving you some tools and strategies to help you begin to step on that path, to get the courage to say, okay, I'm going to start. And this is a way to tip your toe in the water to start the healing process. So we're really equipping you with, we start off with some breathing, some journal prompts, and some ways to cope with what comes up and process what comes up, because what you get right out, I encourage people to write. And I know I don't have time to write, I'm too tired. I'm like, and this is exactly what you need to start getting it out. Write it out to get it out. Walking is great. You can walk and listen to things. I mean, there's many ways to cope. The writing process is something I'm passionate about. The clients that I've worked with, what I've seen over my 18 years is the ones that write on a regular basis heal in a more profound way. The ones that have more of a daily meditation practice and do the breathing feel like they can keep going to those deeper layers. They have the courage to keep going. So coupling that all together gives you the foundation, a new solid foundation to be attuned. And I love this word attunement. I'm very passionate about the word attunement. Attunement to your own internal process. And then I can attune to my children. I can attune to others in a more profound, deep way. And that's what the journal offers you. It's a stepping stone. So you can go to get the link and it will send you the journal with a little video on how to get started, and it's free. I mean, there's no charge. And then each week I'll send you little tidbits to keep going, little highlights here and there, just so you know you're supported on the journey. And you can keep what resonates, discard the rest, because sometimes we get one little nugget from something and I'm like, take it and apply it. Because we can listen to these summits, and my whole heart is Do something, take action, decide to do something. Because if you don't, you're going to get the same results. You're not going to change anything, play the movie out. Well, it's going to look the same. If you decide to take one thing from one speaker or two speakers or whatever that looks like, and you do it, or whatever that might be for you, it will profoundly start shifting, and you will start a new path, and you'll have the courage to keep going. So don't be shy about asking for help, using the tools. There's lots out there. That's what the intention of the journal is.
Absolutely. So well said. So well said, because imagine if just one thing one speaker said can change your life. What more can I ask for? That's just like, wow, that could just completely change the trajectory. Because staying stuck in trauma, you're already on a trajectory that you're not excited about. So why not? Why not?
Why not? Why not?
So great.
And it takes a lot of energy to do what you're doing and getting a dead end result. It's exhausting. It's
Resisting it. Mm-hmm.
It's weary, and you're, oh my gosh, you feel so hopeless and despair.
Yeah.
So
time to shift that.
Yes. Give
Absolutely.
it a shot.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Kristen. This was I flew by. I can't believe how it was just such an incredible and engaging and educational conversation. I'm so thankful, so grateful. And I just want the audience to know again that what Kristen was talking about, the link to the journal, as well as her other resources, her podcast, all of that's available in the email that was sent to you, as well as on this page. And also on this page, you'll see a comment section. Please leave Kristen and I a message, a comment, feedback, question, anything that you would like to say. What did you get from this conversation? What are you going to do? What's going to be your next step after this interview, after watching this interview? We'd love to hear that and know that and be in touch with you. And I'm sure Kristen would love to hear from you as well.
Nothing would delight me more just to hear what your takeaway was, what you're going to apply. That would be wonderful. So yes, I'd love to hear anything that's on your heart that just lit you up, or you had an aha moment. I'd love to hear those.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. It was so lovely having you, and I know we'll be talking soon again. And thank you everyone for watching this interview episode, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.